Okay, look, are you gonna define him? Are you defining him as a necessity, like
Brother,
bare bones? Yes or no?
just let me give the argument. You realize.
Bro, like we're not debating it. This is prerequisites. Like I'm clarifying things before I debate. You know, niggas like typically clarify things before they debate. So like, there's no
You want me to
confusion.
wait, you want me to give you the definition of God right now?
Yes.
Yeah, God, I just mean a metaphysically necessary being that cannot
Okay.
fail to exist and does not depend on anything outside of itself.
All right, man.
All right, can I
Okay.
give the
You can be
argument now?
defining Yeah. Let's just get the rec bot in here and Infinity mute me, man.
Bro, I should have listened to
You
Infinity,
know
bro. He
Infinity
told
are
me
you
this
there?
guy Rizan was fucking biased.
I don't think Infinity's there.
Oh, he's not. So who the fuck is Ahmad?
Who else in this VC has mod? Let me check. Yo,
Oh,
mic up
Infinity
if
is
you have
here.
mod, by the way.
Infinity is here.
All right, mute me so we can begin, bro.
All right. Is he muted? Nah, he's not muted. Infinity, can you mute him real quick?
Who? All right. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is opening, bro.
Mute him so I can give my
Also, it's
opening.
1:30.
You said as what? I'm not. I'm not timing, but I'm
No,
not
no,
doing
no,
it.
no, 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 no. You know that's not what you said.
No. I said, bro. I said
Opener.
after the opening. Like
Okay,
you can
okay, yeah, yeah,
speak. Yeah,
sure, sure,
after the
sure.
after the
I'm
opening. Speak.
not. I'm not timing this shit. You gonna have to get a different mod, bro.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I mean, I can mentally time it, but it's
Yeah,
just not gonna
mentally
be
time
accurate.
it, bro. I'm fine with that.
You agree, Ted?
I agree. Yeah, sure.
Okay, my shit is not gonna be accurate, but go ahead.
All right, yeah. So I affirm that God exists, and my argument. Let's see. Okay, so my argument is that just like contingent reality is sufficient metaphysical explanation, and the best explanation is a necessary personal intelligent foundation of reality, which is what I mean by God. So that's obviously going to be a metaphysical necessary being. Necessary means that this being cannot exist. This being cannot fail to exist and does not depend on anything else outside of itself. This being is uncaused because it is not contingent. It is a timeless time. Um, and yeah, man, it is a spaceless because space is part of a contingent order being explained. It is immaterial because matter is contingent composite and located within space-time. It is enormously powerful because it grounds all finite concrete reality. Um, what else? What else, man? It is personal because it can will one contingent world rather than the other, and it is intelligent and intelligible. So the first distinction is between contingent and necessary existence. A contingent thing exists, but could have failed to exist or could have been different. A necessary thing exists by its own nature and cannot fail to exist. So humans are contingent, physical objects are contingent, the universe contains part, change limit, physical states, constant matter, energy, and possible alternative arrangements. So the universe is not self-evidently necessary. So if you say, well, the universe is necessary, they need to prove, so you need to prove that this exact physical reality could not have failed to exist and could have been otherwise, if that's what you're going to say. And then, so to defend my principle here, um, my principle is a modest PSR. I'm not saying that every fact needs a physical cause. I'm saying contingent facts need explanations because their own nature does not contain the reason for their existence. If something could have failed to exist, then its existence is not explained by itself. So to say contingent reality just exists for no reason is not a neutral position. It is a positive projection of explanation exactly where explanation is being requested. So if you say, well, reality is just a brute contingency, then they're not giving an like you're not really giving an equal explanation because there is no explanation there. So when you say that, that is just gonna be explanatory weaker. No, what the fuck am I saying? Explanatory weaker because my view explains why contingent reality exists, and your view leaves the central fact unexplained. So, um, and yeah, man, the burden is gonna be on you if you do say these things. If you just say like, well, maybe it's like merely brute fact or whatever, shit like that. But, um,
All right,
All
man.
right.
All right.
Okay. So you're obviously going to be running some abductive case of the contingency argument rather than its traditional deductive form, which is fine. Like you said, the best explanation for contingent reality is some sort of like theistic hypothesis. But what I want to question is, well, obviously your claim relies on some modest form of the PSR, which just states every contingent fact has an explanation. I want to know why it does, or why is that true? Because it seems like your justification for that is equivocating on what people mean by explanation. When a theist is talking about explanation, they're only indexing it to causes and effects, right? We're not talking about some method of proof, right? So it'll be fine for me to say it's brute, because when I'm saying something is brute, I'm not saying there's no explanation in the sense that there's no method of discerning whether or not or when something can or cannot be brute. We're just saying there's no causal explanation, but brutes can still serve as an explanation in virtue of them explaining other facts, right? Just not being causally explained in the nature. And even if it were the case that there is no like bruteness, it would be fine, because there can be some like a contingent fact can be different in another world in virtue of some mereological form or something adjacent to a mereological form. Like even if nihilism were to be true, that's fine. Like the atoms that compose it can still be different. That really doesn't change anything. So anything like adjacent to like these meteorological talks, when we talk about ontology, can suffice as an explanation of the difference in facts too, without having any causal explanations, unless you're the type of person which thinks like Miria, like something to be
I'm pretty
like high
sure.
composition needs to be explained. All right, you can go. Like, I would just like you to prove.
Go. Your time started.
All right. So yeah, okay. So I'm just gonna explain everything. So you said, well, you just wanted to like you had a question, and you said different hypothesis, etc. But yeah, so okay, so I think you're just misunderstanding my use of the explanation here, because I'm not reducing explanation to a physical cause and effect. I already clarified that my argument is about sufficient metaphysical explanation, meaning that what grounds why contingent reality exists rather than not existing. So saying brute can still explain the facts is just equivocating, because if brute means no causal explanation, but there is still some like metaphysical grounding there, account, then name the grounding there. I want you to name that. And if brute means that there's no deeper reason why contingent reality exists, then it's not an explanation. It is the denial of one, right? So also method of discerning here would just be when something is brute, is not itself an explanation of the fact that is an epistemic. That's like epistemic, right? Not ontological. So knowing when you want to stop explaining does not explain the thing that you stopped at. So you still owe an account of why contingent reality exists, and appealing to atoms, neurological forms, or lower contingent structures does not answer my argument, because those are all still contingent things inside the totality of contingent reality. So explaining one contingent state by another contingent state might explain local differences inside the world, but it does not explain the totality of contingency itself, because if the explanation is contingent, it is already included in what I'm asking you to explain. So the question is direct. Are you giving a metaphysical explanation for a contingent reality, or are you saying there is no explanation? So if you're giving
Okay.
one, I want you to name one.
Am I unmuted?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. This was just really confused. One, I'm not necessarily saying the causes have to be physical or anything. I don't know where you got that from. Uh, I was just really confused. I'm saying that causes. I'm just saying like there could be a cause. Like I'm not like committed to like any like physical or immaterial causation. That's fine. Also, when you talk about grounding, uh, I don't know why you asked me to cash that out there. You're the one that brung up the concept of grounding. If you want to justify there being such things as quote unquote metaphysical grounding, I'm gonna need justification for that. Also, don't know. I don't know what's the difference between supposed metaphysical grounding and just grounding in general. Presumably, the distinction is going to be whether something is immaterial or material. But if you want to bring up those types of distinctions, you're also going to have to deal with the interaction problem, which is going to be a burden for you. That you can go ahead and prove like these immaterial things can ground these material things or just interact with them in any type of relevant way. No, when you talk about brute and like all this epistemology stuff and like there being no deeper reason, I'm not being a retard and defining it like how some like ass nigga like Russell is. I'm literally just saying uncaused, right? Uncaused and unexplained are two different things. I've already said this is equivocation. We can still have some method in which we discern brutes, right? But that doesn't mean a brute is unexplained in the sense that there is no method. It's unexplained in the causal sense in which the theist is cashing out explanation to be semantically identical with causes. Also, for the fucking particle thing, you just didn't address like how that was just like a second backup to mereological composition, which went unaddressed. And if you want to address like that point now, I'm going to need to know why the burner rejoinder isn't met and why you can still respond to that. And just to respond to the thing, like what's in question is whether or not like physical phenomena can explain this, right? And I'm just saying like the difference in contingent facts across different possible worlds can be in virtue of like these sort of atoms. I'm not like attempting to explain like a totality that's confused. All right, man.
Your timer's already started, bro. As soon as I say all right, everybody's timer starts.
All right, man. So, yeah, just the first thing I want to ask you. Obviously, I'm going to answer everything you told me, but the first thing I want to ask you is your brute explanation actually a grounding explanation, or is it just like a no causal explanation? I want you to clarify that for me. So next time I don't respond, I can actually respond better. But listen, so first, you already just conceded that the central point, because you said that you're not attempting to explain the totality, but my argument is about the totality of contingent reality, not just local differences between possible worlds. So if your atoms or mereological composition point only explains why one contingent arrangement differs from another, then it has not touched my thesis, because atoms, parts, arrangements, and physical phenomenon are still inside contingent reality. And second, I'm not equivocating on explanation. My argument was never only about efficient causal explanation. I'm explicitly said that sufficient metaphysical explanation. So if you redefine brute as merely uncaused but still explain, then name the explanation. What explains why contingent reality exists rather than not existing? If you cannot name that, then it isn't unexplained, right? So third, you cannot reject grounding while using phrases like in virtue of atoms, because in virtue of is already a grounding language. So if you what? That's already time?
No, my bad, Go ahead.
What the fuck, bro? You gotta increase my time. But listen, like I was saying, right? If you say facts differ in virtue of atoms, then you're appealing to explanatory dependence. So either you're allowing grounding explanations, or you just need to back up what you're saying there. 'Cause I'm just confused, right? And the fourth, the interaction problem is irrelevant here, because grounding is not the same thing as physical pushing or mechanical interaction. But even if you want to press interaction, you need an argument that an immaterial necessary
That's
foundation.
and I gave you 10 seconds more, by the way. Go high.
All right, man. So one, obviously, the answer to your question is going to be contingent on what you mean by grounding. I know your argument is talking about the totality, but the problem is I'm questioning whether or not like the totality talk or contingencies can't be explained by contingency is something that's going to be true. That's obviously what's in question. I know your argument is saying that. I'm questioning why, and I'm giving these things sorts of like presumably why you could say it is. That obviously for the totality to be explained, it rests on the very thing you're trying to prove. So it's not like anything you said was informative or repeated what I said. Three, when I'm talking about grounding, I don't have to actually have to commit to some real ontological grounding. Like, I don't know if you know what, like, I can make the same type of moves all these nominalists want to make or all these anti-realists want to make. It could just be like conventional language used to express some sort of like relations, but not exactly what you want to posit holistically. That can be fine. That that really wasn't anything. Also, like, what you still didn't respond to, like, what is the difference between something like just grounding and then metaphysical grounding? That's really confused. And if you want to respond to that, the burden rejoinder move is just going to be made again. You didn't respond to the burden rejoinder point from last time, so I'm just going to evoke another burden rejoinder again. Uh, Also, like, I forgot what this nigga said, bro. I forgot the last point. I really forgot the last point, bro. Uh, Fuck. Oh yeah, the interaction problem. Yeah, bro. That I don't think like when I say interaction, there I just mean like why, like okay, why an immaterial thing can ground a material thing and vice versa. Also, the explanation for like, oh well, bro. Okay, I guess that's just my.
Hey, bro. Hey, hold on. Let me unmute you.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So so the interaction problem You say you didn't hear that, so I can just clarify that for you. So when I say the interaction problem is irrelevant here, is because your grounding is not the same thing as physical pushing. Or did I already say that? Oh yeah, I think I already said that to you. I think. But listen. So grounding, and let me just clarify what I mean here. Grounding here just means explanatory dependence, right? So I'm not sneaking in some weird extra ontology, right? I just mean one fact obtains because of or in virtue of another. So metaphysical grounding just means a non-physical or fundamental explanation for why something exists or obtains. So if you reject that type of explanation, then you stop using in virtue of language, because that is literally explanatory dependent language, right? Secondary thing. I'm not assuming that the totality cannot be explained by contingency, right? Because I argued it. So if, let's just say C, right? If C is the totality of all contingent reality, then any contingent explanation would already be inside of C. So it cannot explain C as a whole, right? As a whole, without being part of the very thing needing explanation. So local contingent explanations can explain other local contingent facts, but they cannot explain the totality of contingent facts. And third, your nominalistic move does not help, because even if in virtue of it's just conventional language, you still oh, the actual explanation, because calling it conventional does not explain why contingent reality exists, right? It only explains how you talk about it. And fourth, the burden of
Okay. Hyde.
Oh yeah, I'm here, bro. Uh, anyways, no, like I'm not defining like when I say interaction there, problem there. I'm just referring to like the schema in which they use to like question that, right? We just have this physical thing and this non-physical thing. I want to know how like this non-physical thing can ground this physical thing, right? I'm not referring to like things like pushing or whatever. Obviously, I like question how the grounding can occur. I've questioned that multiple times. Also, bro, I'm not rejecting that. I'm questioning. Sorry, I'm not. What am I? I forgot what I said. You said I was gonna reject like explanations and grounding and like and talk of like using stuff like in virtue, but obviously my model is gonna be different because my model isn't positing anything non-physical. Uh, Three, what's in question is whether or not there needs to be something outside of out of the totality that explains the totality. That's another question bag. And for the other points about when he said like, okay, if bruteness just means no deeper explanation, what explains reality, bro? I've clarified this many times. Brute here is not indexed to anything epistemological. It's indexed to just something being uncaused, and that uncaused thing uh, can explain reality. That's also one of my other hypotheses. And one of the others, like distinct, these are not a conject, but two other things that can be alternative hypotheses is like the sort of like mereological thing and the adjacent thing to mereology, which would be like the nihilist view. You also didn't respond to like the mereological case either. You keep trying to justify it like, oh, but the totality needs an external explanation, but that's what's in question. I can concede the rest of my time.
Okay. Time now starts to.
all right. So I just want to ask you a clarifying question here. So when you say local contingent explanations, like, I want you to explain local contingent explanations. Why they do not explain the totality of contingency there? Because that's what you said, I'm pretty sure. But look, your response here still does not answer the totality argument, because you keep saying, well, I'm questioning, or you're questioning where the totality needs an external explanation, but my reason is already given, right? If C is the totality of all contingent reality, then any contingent physical explanation, atoms, mereology, arrangements, or natural facts are inside of C, right? So those can explain local differences within C, but they cannot explain C as a whole. That is not assumed, so it follows from what totality means. And bruteness, you clarified it means uncaused, so that does not hurt my argument, because my claim was never merely that contingent reality needs a prior efficient cause. My claim is that contingent reality needs a sufficient explanation for why it exists, rather than not explaining it. So if brute just means uncaused, then it is irrelevant unless you still like give an explanation. So if brute means uncaused and unexplained, then it loses explanatory power. Either way, it does not beat my case. And on the grounding, the grounding part is simple, right? Because grounding is explanatory dependence, not metaphysical, not
Hyde.
mechanical interaction.
Hyde.
Oh shit. Anyways, I never mentioned local contingent explanation. Also, I don't think I need to give an argument for that because those are just counter hypotheses to the thing you want to concretely affirm blatantly. Uh, Also, but the reasons you keep on giving go back to the totality needing an external explanation. I understand, like, you think those things are inside the totality, but why does that stop them from explaining it? bro, like you keep hinging on these things, like saying, okay, well, it's in the totality, therefore it needs an explanation. But I'm questioning whether or not like the move from like them being in the totality to there being an external like explanation is justified. And no, like it would hurt your argument because you're trying to posit that the only thing that could cause these like cause contingent reality is this sort of like God hypothesis with additional properties, by the way, because you didn't just define them as necessity. You gave like, yeah, it needs personal, all this, blah, blah, blah. If like just something that is uncaused and that's just its only property, not only is it gonna, that's just gonna be more like parsimonious too. Also, you
Alright,
keep on equivocating between like
hold on, Ginger.
all right.
All right, man. So look, I couldn't even give my full response the last time, but let me just ask you a clarifying question. When you say alternatives, right, are you explaining the totality of contingent reality, or like are you just saying, well, those are just the fact and like the facts inside of it, right? Um, so yeah, you just shifted. You kind of really shifted, like to saying maybe there is some uncaused thing with only that property, but that does not beat the argument because first, this uncaused thing is contingent, then it is brute contingency, and you still owe a reason why contingent reality is exempt from explanation. And secondary, right? It is necessary. Then you are basically conceding my first stage, which is that contingent reality terminates in a necessary independent foundation. Now the debate becomes like, we can just say what kind of necessary foundation best explains data. And for the bare uncaused thing, it does not automatically better just because it has fewer properties, because explanatory simplicity is not just having less content. It has to explain the relevant fact because my added properties are not random. It materially follows because matter is part of contingent reality, right? Um, and so like when you say your alternative is either contingent and brute or necessary and underdeveloped, either way, it does not explain the totality better than God.
Alright,
My case,
All right,
alright.
man. As I was saying, like, bro, you just keep going on back to the external point, but I'm questioning whether or not that move is valid. And for the thing you were saying about the like the brute contingency or the brute being necessary, bro, both those can still apply, and it wouldn't hurt what I'm saying either, because obviously, even what's in question is whether or not like the totality being brute or something in the totality being brute would be like harmful. You just keep going on back to, oh, but it's in the totality. I'm questioning why that is harmful. You still have not given a reason as to why that's harmful at all. Uh, Also, you keep on equivocating like really weirdly between like epistemological and ontology. I'm saying like this can serve as an explanation, but explanation is only indexed to call it like a causal order. Uh, and for the last point in which you were talking, oh yeah, you can also, oh, and for the last point where you're talking about, oh yeah, well these needs to explain like blah blah, bro. Go ahead and prove matter can only be applied to something that's contingent. I don't grant that, bro. Yeah, that's just like a claim. You never substantiate it. You also like never like interact with the interaction problem. You, uh, I don't. You're just gonna question back in your next response. Do you want to conclude, bro?
I'm still muted. I'm muted now. You said do I want to conclude? That's what you said?
Yeah, man. Do you
Yeah, man, we can conclude.
type shit, man?
All right. Wait, are and conclusions timed or untimed?
Down.
Timed? Oh, untimed. Okay, okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm going to conclude here because his whole response never actually gives a competing explanation of the totality of contingent reality because he keeps saying, well, I'm going back to the totality, but that is literally the thesis of my argument. I'm not asking for a local explanation inside reality. I'm asking why contingent reality exists as a whole, right? And the reason internal explanation fail like is not assumed here is because it follows analytically from totality. So we can just say if C includes every contingent fact, then any contingent explanation is already inside C. So it can explain another fact within C, but it cannot explain why C exists as a whole. So this is why atoms, mereology, physical arrangements, or possible world differences do not answer the argument here because they are internal contingent explanations. And for the brute thing, Like your brute move also just fails, I feel like, because if brute means uncaused but still explained, then he never actually named an explanation there. Because if brute means uncaused and unexplained, then it has less explanatory power than my view. Either way, I don't think it beats like necessary foundation there. And the interaction problem is something I also just asserted because I'm not like claiming mechanical physical contact, right? I'm claiming explanatory dependence. So unless you prove or you could have done right in the debate, it is incoherent for a necessary immaterial foundation to ground material reality. You have not really defeated the argument there. So yeah, I just think I gave a positive explanation. I think contingent reality cannot, explain itself. Internal contingent fact cannot explain the totality. Brute facts are either unexplained or underdeveloped, and his side only really questions the need for an external explanation, but it never actually gives a better alternative. So therefore, I feel like my necessary personal intelligent foundation has better explanatory scope and coherence. And yeah, you can go ahead and give your conclusion.
Yeah, Mal, hold on. Let me like change my phone from low power mode. Anyways, the whole debate was like on his part was basically a question bag. I kept questioning whether or not the totality would need an external explanation. He just said, okay, what the things inside the totality can't explain the totality. That was in question the entire time. For the interaction problem, bro, like I was never saying that had to be in mechanical, and I was just saying like the framework or with like the normal moves in which the interaction problem raises the question can just be raised here. Why can a non-material thing ground a physical thing? That was never responded to. He also never proved like for stage 2, matter was something that can only be indexed to contingencies. What else was there? I forgot, man. I forgot a lot of stuff because I wasn't taking notes down, man. Good debate, man.
All right, man. Good debate. You can end, right? Did you end, right? Who ended, right?
Uh, bro, the rec's not. Hold on.